I've got my pastries here for the wife and kids, but unfortunately, they're out of hummus, which is, I can't believe it. They've never been out of hummus before, and what a disappointment. But life goes on. Now it's time to carry the goods back for the fam. Okay? All right. Back on the road. So this place is called Annam Gourmet, and they're usually very well stocked. So very surprising that they don't have hummus, but maybe that's saying something. That's telling me that while hummus made out of chickpeas is very healthy, I usually eat it with pita bread. So that's a message from the guy up top saying during this 6 pack in 6 months that I've got to cut out the carbs. So denied. All good, all good. Just go home and get some eggs. Nice protein to put in the body. But again, totally worth it. So anyways, let's get back to fantasy football. So why does a group of older dudes or even younger dudes, play this game, play this fantasy? And why should girlfriends and wives support it? All right, here it is. One, it's all about play, okay? It's good for people to play. We encourage our kids to play. So why, as adults, why don't we continue to play? And playing stimulates the brain. It, rather than it being stagnant, we need to play, okay? Because we, as adults, work most of our lives, and work causes stress, ages you, but play rejuvenates you, right? So we should all, even as we grow older, we should play. Because play keeps you young, play keeps you happy. And it's not physical play, but even mental play is very powerful, especially to stave off diseases, if we want to call it that, like Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss. We should all play, okay? And I encourage my mother, who is 82 this year, to play games. Go onto the iPad and play slot machine games or whatever games, word games, puzzle games, to keep her mind active. And my mom does that, and her memory and her brain is wonderful. She's, at her age, has really good memory, doesn't forget many things. And cognitively, she's very strong. So again, no matter what age you are, we should engage in play because it brings us happiness and it's good for our brain. And I would say sometimes when you see chess players playing, they're actually burning calories by just sitting there and thinking on what move to make next and looking ahead and strategy. And so as managers of, fantasy football teams, you're always thinking ahead. You're always processing. Which players do I drop because they're not performing? Which players should I pick up because they are performing? And I might want to get them early on, so that I beat other players to the punch and have them on my team because I speculate that they will produce. And there's certain indications of that already. So, through the preseason games, through camp reports. So players have to report to camp where they start to get back into physical football shape to play the season, because it's a grueling sport. And so it allows fantasy football managers to then keep up to date with the news. And that is also firing the synapses and the thinking and the strategy on how to manage a team. So there, play, one reason. And if you're playing this, right, that could mean that you're not out doing other things like drinking, like partying. So engaging in this also keeps guys from other vices. And drinking is just one of them, right? There could be other vices that, say, women, girlfriends, wives are not particularly fond of. And so if we're engaging in this particular activity, then we're not out engaging in other silly activities, okay? So there, that's one of them. The other thing is what? Is connection. Because in order to play this, you're connected to the other members of that particular league that you're in. So in my case, 11 other players. And it's my connection back to my old friends that I started playing like many years ago. My connection back with them, because I've been in Vietnam for 20 years. And so it's a way for me to reconnect with friends that I don't see because I hardly ever go back to America. Last time was right after COVID, but it was a very short time period just to get some paperwork done. And I wasn't able to see everybody. So it allows me to connect with them online, particularly for the draft date. There's a lot of smack talk going on, and then stay connected with them. So yeah, connection is very important. So sometimes as we go older and we move away to wherever we're at, and we sometimes get isolated and we don't maybe have friends where we're at. And so it allows you to reconnect with old friends and people you would not normally see on a regular basis. So connection is super good. And it's also connection back to the sport that I really love watching. And it's a way for me to also share this with my boy or my kids, who might also enjoy the sport down the road. And it's something that we can watch together on television if there's ever a game on that we could pick up. So connection with your kids, being a fan of the same team, hopefully. Last thing I want them to ever be a fan of are the Cowboys, which is my younger brother Home's favorite team, and the Raiders, which is my older brother Kwan's favorite team. And that would be disaster. So I've got to make sure I wear my red and gold and keep reminding them of our team, okay? So again, connection to old friends, connection to my kids, and I would love to at some point go back to the US, maybe catch a game in the stadium, in Levi's Stadium, which I haven't been too, except for driving by just outside, where because my mother used to live just about a mile away from there, and I would love to go catch a game there. And this particular year is special because the Super Bowl is actually being played at Levi Stadium. And wouldn't that be so cool to have the 49ers play a Super Bowl in their home stadium and win their sixth ring? That would be so sweet. So this is a very hopeful season for me, okay? So play, connection, okay, keeps us guys out of trouble. And then there's, bragging rights, which is important because that bragging rights and even winning the league is a confidence booster. It's, good for the self-esteem if we do well and can celebrate it and share that confidence with the kids, share that confidence, in general, that we're winners. And I'm generally, even though I don't watch any of the games and I don't watch until the highlights the day after, but I'll catch the highlights and watch the games, and it's a lot of fun. So I think it's a remarkable game. Sometimes, though, I think, the conspiracy theorists in me and some of the bad calls that happen on the football field, I feel as though sometimes games very much feel rigged. And rigged by who? Rigged by the NFL, rigged by what I call Vegas or the gambling culture that influences games depending on where the bets are, where the monetary bets are for particular games. And so lots of bad calls, many unbelievably terrible and blown calls. So I think the NFL should clean that up. Could be much more pure and a better sport if that gets cleaned up. So you actually play for something, honestly play for something. So I hope that I'm wrong about that, but some of the plays that I've seen, some blown calls, oh my God, feels rigged. Yeah. So anyways, I won't go deep in the weeds. I still enjoy watching the game as much as possible. And hopefully I'm completely wrong about that, but show me the evidence that I'm wrong. Because I could show you, and a lot of YouTubers have actually followed this and shared this, where you could clearly see that some of those calls and plays are so suspect. And some former players have come out about it, okay? So anyways, the last thing that I want to also share why it's good is management skills, and how do you manage a team? How do you manage your life? How do you learn the skills to manage? Well, you've got to obviously know the game, know the topic, know the market that you're in, all the other managers who are there and how they select and what they value. And so it teaches you a lot of skills in terms of making the right selections. So during the draft, to do your research, make the right selections. And so you end up with a really solid team. You really end up with a really solid portfolio to start with, so that you can, have some gains or some wins, okay? And then that, these skills can be translated to how you play the game on a week-to-week which players do you put on the roster to play that week against the other team. So it's very strategic. So you're learning strategy, you're implementing strategy, testing the research that you've done to put the right team on the field to score points. And hopefully you do that well. I mean, there's always things that pop up like injuries where your team scores less points or they're playing against a very tough opponent and hence they don't do as well, whereas you might want to pick a lesser player to play given that they're playing against a weaker team where they can now score more points than your regulars. So extremely important for learning management skills, but also strategy, and that all adds back up to that whole idea of play, of using your brain to think and keeping active, okay? Because we not only keep active to train our physical body so that we're healthier, but we got to train our brains to be healthy as well. They always have that saying, if you don't use it, then you lose it. So we've got to use our bodies, do walk and talks, and we've got to use our mind, to continue to play and engage and be strategic and connect and stay out of trouble and don't engage in activities that are bad for your mind and your body. So those are the huge benefits I see from fantasy football. And I guess this is a way for you to, guys, you can share this video podcast walk and talk by old dad to your girlfriends and wives, partners, to convince them that this is all good, okay? Now, some leagues, there are obviously incentives, so there could be wagers that are on, but generally they're very contained in one football season. If you think about it, it's not very much. But obviously, when there's a win at the end, if you're really good at managing and risk assessment and being swift in making the right moves, then if you generally are on the top 3, then you've at least broken even or, gotten some incentives, okay? And again, it's about confidence. It's about confidence building as well. And it's something that you can also, when your children are older, you can also have them as part of the league and share in the experience, which at the end of the day, I think is very important for all of us to do, is to have an activity that red light, that the entire family can engage in. That's fun, that makes use of being alive and involved and connected, okay? So I hope that convinces all of you to engage in an activity such as fantasy football, but also there are other fantasy leagues in baseball and basketball. But I personally prefer football because there are just less games, less to follow. Baseball, basketball, there could be 100, 150 games, and that's too many for me to follow. And I like to have a very solid draft and then just rely on that team that I drafted, some crucial pickups during the season to ensure that my team is functional and plays well without a lot of time put into it, so that I can, obviously work play with my kids, take vacations, and also finish my PhD. So even during your PhD, you cannot be fully just, hammering away at doing that. You need some time, away to experience play. Okay? So again, this series will be a way for me to share with you my fantasy football teams in 2 different leagues. One is with really old friends that we've been playing for over 20 years that I reconnect with every season when I get into fantasy football. And then there's a group of local guys, and one of the guys is actually used to be here living in Vietnam, but he's since moved with his family back to Houston, Texas. And he's generally still connects with all of us through fantasy football. So that's awesome too. So this has been 2 halves of 2 parts of a long episode, but I hope it's a nice kickoff to what fantasy football is and the benefits of fantasy football. And I'll keep sharing with you in this series about my team, maybe even share with you and screen cap my draft and share it with you so that you can follow along with my team. And if some of you are really good, fantasy football players, you can share with me some strategies that I should consider, and maybe even share with me which players I should keep my eyes on to maybe pick up for my team if they're available and they're not picked up yet, or if I don't have them yet. And share with me your fantasy football team if you already play or want to try to play. Okay, I think it's all good and fun. Keeps us out of trouble, and it should be an exciting year. I only played in 1 league last year, and I was the champ of the league last year. So I was very fortunate in the snake draft that I picked up. I was in the 12th slot, so the 12th, 13th slot. And people passed up on Saquon Barkley last year and also Derrick Henry. So I had the double-headed monster at running back, and that kind of powered me through the season. And some nice little pickups along the way that allowed my team to perform in the playoffs and secure the victory. So that was an awesome year. And I generally make the playoffs in the top 6, if not the top 4. I don't know how I do it. I just have a passion for it. And I'll see how I do this year, and I'll share it with you on Old Dad Discovers. And Old Dad Discovers Fantasy Football. Go Niners, okay? Go Niners. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's my prediction. Okay, so if I've got a lot of 49er players, you know why, because I believe. I'm a faithful. All right, cheers, everyone. Old Dad Discovers.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Old Dad Discovers.